It's been a long time since the Packers have had a new head coach. When Mike McCarthy was hired, you had an iPod and not an iPhone, and you certainly didn't have a Twitter account. Change is hard. Maybe Matt LaFleur is the first coach not named McCarthy you'll watch. Or maybe you remember the Lindy Infante years. No matter how long you've been a Packers fan, it should be easy to root for Matt LaFleur. This winter, John and I wrote 25 profiles of potential head coaches for the Power Sweep. Sports Illustrated thought this year's group of potential head coaches was the weakest in decades. That made it hard to write an optimistic profile on some of these candidates. But when we first wrote about Matt LaFleur, it was met with a resounding meh. 58% said they didn't want to see him as a head coach. Even after the Packers interviewed LaFleur, he wasn't the favorite. Our readers wanted Josh McDaniels or Adam Gase instead. The Athletic wrote LaFleur wouldn't have been their first, second, or third choice for the job. Plus, LaFleur's assistants were young. In fact, the youngest Packers staff in almost 30 seasons, full of unknown and unproven coaches. It culminated in a peak off-season, nothing else to talk about, controversy about Rodgers' ability to change the plays at the line of scrimmage. So maybe you're feeling a little nervous about Matt LaFleur and the Packers' chances in 2019. For him to climb the coaching ranks as fast as he has, without the assistance of a famous last name, should give us hope that Green Bay's got a great coach. LaFleur's in Green Bay largely thanks to his association with offensive gurus Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay. As an assistant coach, LaFleur's worked hard behind the scenes. He didn't just ask for the credit because he didn't need it. 15 years ago, LaFleur spent his formative college years playing for a team that had something special about it. Those who covered the tiny Saginaw Valley state wrote that the players always put the team ahead of their own interests. It happened in interviews, and it showed on the field. That type of selflessness doesn't disappear overnight, and it stayed with LaFleur throughout his coaching career. His dad didn't win Super Bowls as a head coach. His grandpa didn't build a dynasty that won 5 championships. Instead, LaFleur grew up in a Michigan town half as big as Green Bay. He played indoor football for a team called the Omaha Beef. He served as the Falcons' quarterback coach during Matt Ryan's MVP season and Atlanta's Super Bowl run. As an offensive coordinator for the Rams in Los Angeles, he helped quarterback Jared Goff shed his label as a draft bust. LaFleur was comfortable, but he wanted more. He left an ascending Rams team for the Tennessee Titans, a franchise cursed to be forever mediocre, because he wanted to call the plays. And now, he's the big cheese in Green Bay, based on his merit and not because of his last name. It's not the first time this has happened in the 100 years of Packers football. Green Bay has always been an organization full of no-names. Curly Lambeau wasn't good enough to play for Knute Rockne at Notre Dame after World War I ended, and instead moved back home and started a football team. If you even knew who Vince Lombardi was before the Packers hired him, you probably knew him as a college football player at Fordham and not a coach. Just 10 years before Mike Holmgren coached the Packers, he was teaching high schoolers and moonlighting as a football coach at a small college in San Francisco. So what if LaFleur isn't a recognizable name? So what if nobody outside the organization thought he was the right man for the job? If anyone can relate with what LaFleur had to have felt, it's Aaron Rodgers. One of the best quarterbacks in a century spent the first 3 years of his NFL career being unknown and unwanted. 21 teams passed on him in the draft, some more than once. In Green Bay, he then had to sit behind Brett Favre for 3 long years. When he finally became the starting quarterback, everyone outside the Packers seemed to want nothing to do with him. You should have traded him for Randy Moss. Bring back Favre. Why didn't we draft Vince Young? We want Brian Brom. Rodgers was booed at practices through chain-link fences. He was booed in a scrimmage inside Lambeau Field, dubbed Family Night. You can't write this stuff up. But Rodgers chose to use every slight as fuel to make him great. LaFleur's success will be measured by his ability to help Aaron Rodgers finish his career with a Super Bowl championship. And if that happens, the two can each point to their own moments of being overlooked and undervalued. And that is why I'm all in on Matt LaFleur.